Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. The world is at 2 million cases and 126,000 deaths, and those are understated because the PRC is lying to us. The United States has 600,000 cases, 24,429 deaths as of Johns Hopkins website this morning. To discuss this and other issues, I'm joined by Senator Thom Tillis of the great state of North Carolina, a businessman turned senator. Senator Tillis, welcome. Good to have you on.
Good morning, Hugh. How are you?
I'm good. Is everyone in the Tillis clan fine?
We are, including my nurse is expecting my second grandbaby in August. She put on her scrubs and went to work this morning, and we're doing our part and social distancing and all the other things to flatten the curve and get us back to some semblance of normal.
You know, one of my many I never let an idea go unspoken is that we ought to make all these frontline healthcare workers and first responders eligible for the GI Bill after this, because they're going into harm's way when they do this, Senator, and we ought to recognize that as a country.
Well, we certainly do, and I think after we get through this crisis, and we will, and emerge strong, we have to take a look at the impact that we've had on the healthcare system and make sure we're even better prepared for the next crisis of this kind.
Now, I'm going to be very hard on the Democrats in this segment, but I want to begin by being hard on the Republicans. Your seatmate, Senator Burr, is under investigation for insider trading and now the sale of his Capitol Hill house. I believe in the Menendez rule. No one has to quit the Senate unless they're convicted, but I also believe he ought to step down as chairman of the Intel Committee. Has there been any conversation with him about that?
I haven't had any conversation with them about it. I know that the Ethics Committee, he asked for an investigation by the Senate Ethics Committee. I suspect that there's an investigation in the DOJ, and we'll have to see where the facts lead.
Would you just pass along to him for me, and I believe every Republican who's listening and conservative, he needs to step down as head of Intel. I have no confidence in him until this is done. Not the Senate, but I don't want him chairing Intel in the time when we have to have confidence in the findings of that committee regarding the PRC.
Well, regardless of what happens with the investigation, I think Senator Burr owes everybody in North Carolina and the United States an explanation, and we'll see where the investigation goes with respect to his chairmanship. That's a decision that he and that would be better left to him and the leadership.
All right, now let me move on to being very hard on the Democrats. I cannot believe, literally cannot believe, they blocked funding for America's small businesses. There are desperately, urgently needed resources at the stroke of a hand ready to pass to go to America's small businesses, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer blocked them. Is that going to continue? They're holding us hostage.
Well, they need to understand. North Carolina, I just got an update this morning. We've had almost 24,000 businesses get nearly $6 billion in loans. They, in a time where we're trying to help and calm the nerves of businesses and individuals, they are heightening this. They're at risk of not allowing us to pass this unanimously this week. $250 billion to backstop the $350 billion that was in the CARES Act. We are averaging about $20 billion in loan requests a day. If that average keeps up, we would be out of the baseline money that we passed 3 weeks ago. And they're putting American businesses, American workers, American paychecks at risk. Hugh, a lot of businesses want these loans so they can keep their employees on the payroll, keep the health care that they're happy with, and put them at risk, and then get them in long lines at unemployment, where we have over 550,000 requests for unemployment over the last 4 weeks. It's going to take weeks to take down that backlog, and the only reason some of them would have to go that route is because Pelosi and Schumer are playing games, and it's disgusting.
It is unbelievable. I have, in my other hat, I run the Nixon Foundation. We employ a few dozen people, and our bank, the Pacific Mercantile Bank, little community bank, got our loan. And so I don't have to fire anyone. And they have done hundreds of loans, and they're to the max. And everybody is to the max that is participating. But I think the law needs to make it even easier for banks to participate and reward them for doing so. And we got to refund it. I cannot believe the coverage. This is America held hostage. This is a simple hostage taking of small businesses by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Does anyone not understand that in North Carolina?
Oh, absolutely not. And I think that they are going to see a huge backlash if all of a sudden we have to pause this loan vehicle at the end of this week, and they deserve it. I mean, look, this is a program that passed out of the Senate unanimously. Every member present voted for the CARES Act. All we're saying is we want to continue to make this program viable by funding it. That Pelosi would hold hostage her priorities, many of which have nothing to do with the response to COVID and trying to stabilize the economic situation. If she holds it hostage and causes this program to pause, I believe she's going to pay a serious political consequence for it. More importantly, businesses will end up suffering the consequences, and we need to avoid it, and we can do it just by having Mitch McConnell go to the Senate floor, gives unanimous consent to put $250 billion of additional funding in the account.
Would you be open to a couple of lines to make it easier for banks to do this? There was some of the regulations from Treasury have been good, but I think they need to actually make a little money, a quarter point or something on every loan that they write because they're overwhelmed with applications.
Yeah, and they've done an extraordinary job. Can you imagine that we passed this bill 3 weeks ago? It took a week to actually get the guidance so that the banks could start lending. And in 2 weeks, what the banking industry has done for business is extraordinary. And we don't want them to lose money. What we're trying to do is minimize the cost and put everything that we can into the bank accounts of businesses. But we're looking, there are some things, Hugh, that we're going to have to do that will require congressional action because there are some businesses that are not eligible. There are certain nonprofit organizations that are not eligible based on the plain letter of the law. So there's additional work we need to do to expand lending opportunities. And I think we have to take a look at it and make sure the banks are at least kept whole. And I do believe that there's something to be said that they should be paid some amount of money for the work that they're doing because they're literally the lifeblood of this program.
Thom Tillis, Senator, Pastor Dale Huntington of City Life Church in San Diego tweeted out last night that he's gone from bank to bank and no one will fund his loan. And they run the food bank for the poorest community in San Diego. They do counseling for the addicted. I mean, there are churches all over this country that are getting turned down because nobody understands. They are business. They are eligible as not-for-profits, and we can't discriminate against them because they are religious organizations.
Well, that's exactly right. And we're daily getting on the line with the administration, trying to push the limits of the authority that they have. And I have to say that the administration has been very helpful. But there are going to be some points where we probably do have to get, I hope, unanimous agreement on certain businesses that they can't lend to. But for the churches, the nonprofits, they're stepping up and helping in extraordinary ways. And we've got to make sure that we recognize that they are businesses. They've got to make payroll. They've got to pay their bills. They should be fully eligible for all the resources that we put out there.
Okay, last question, Senator Tillis. The big story of the morning from the AP is that it's broken that the PRC's Central Committee and General Secretary Xi, at a minimum, sat on known pandemic issues for at least 6 days in January. I think it's much worse than that, but that's at a minimum. Does the United States have to reassess not just its relationship with the WHO, but with the PRC?
Absolutely. The reason that we're dealing with a pandemic of this scale is because of China's failure to cooperate long before January. Shame on them for not sharing the information and getting lead scientists to help them save lives in China. You can't believe their reports of deaths and infections in China. And frankly, now we know that the whole source of this virus came from a laboratory in China. They have to be held accountable. We also have to take a serious look at our supply chains, our reliance on China. Things have to change. We cannot be dependent on what I consider to be a foe militarily, economically. We've got to do a better job. We've got to hold the PR, not the Chinese people, the leadership of China. They misled their own population. They misled the world. The WHO did not put the pressure on, and all of these people have to be held accountable after we fix what's going on in this country and we get our economy back on track.
I've got a column at the Washington Post today, Senator. We got 30 seconds about Josh Hawley's plan. It would hose the country down with money at 80%. Does it have traction with you?
It's something that we're looking at. I'm talking with Josh and others, and there's a lot of things we've got to get to once we get back on the Hill.
All right, Senator Thom Tillis, great to speak with you as always. Follow him on Twitter at THOM, Thom Tillis. I'll be right back, America. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show.